Apple has upgraded the iPad Air for 2022 with an upgraded camera on the front, a new processor, new colors, all steps in the right direction. So is this still the iPad to get if you're looking for a true tablet, or just a tick box exercise to keep things relevant? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and this is our review, and if you do like it, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more. Now, from a design perspective, it's the same as the previous generation, and that's no bad thing. The Air sports the same design language as the iPad Pro, albeit smaller in scale. Well, compared to the 12-inch model at least. Compared to the 11-inch model, it's basically the same. It's sleek and utilitarian in its approach. Stick it side by side with the 11-inch iPad Pro and you'll struggle to see many differences. The big picture is they're essentially the same, although they're not identical. For instance, the Air uses a Touch ID sensor in the power button rather than Face ID as found in the iPad Pro lineup. The Touch ID button is easy to use. It's simply a case of quickly pressing and holding it to quickly log in. It also has a single camera on the back rather than that large square protrusion with a dual camera system and LiDAR support. It's not quite as skinny, but still thin and light enough to make it easy to carry around and use every day. It's also available in different colours. This model is the new blue model, but there's also pink and purple to go along with the usual space grey and starlight. Encased in recycled aluminium, the 2022 iPad Air should be robust enough to withstand general wear and tear. Although it's worth noting that Apple doesn't provide an official IP rating against water or dust resistance, so don't go using it in the bath anytime soon. That metal case, although giving it extra protection, does mean there's no wireless charging here. That's a shame, as it's a feature we love on the iPhone and one that we would still love to see for the iPad. Still, with Type-C support, it expands the options available to you and certainly makes it seem more pro than its name might suggest. You can use this to read external drives and charge it, for example. Although unlike the Pro, it doesn't support Thunderbolt 4. It's USB 3.1 Gen 2, which at 10 gigabits per second is still pretty speedy and versatile, with DisplayPort capabilities for plugging in an external display as well. Of course, like the iPad Pro, it also has the smart connector point, so you can snap on the keyboard accessories like the awesome Magic Keyboard, which itself has its own Type-C port to pass through connections through that smart connector, allowing access to 2 ports at once. You can also snap on the newest Apple Pencil for charging wirelessly on the side. So while design hasn't changed massively from the previous iPad Air, internally the processing and the power capabilities have improved considerably. The introduction of Apple's M1 chip puts this slate on par with the 2021 iPad Pro and even the MacBook Air in terms of power available. Just as we've found with the iPad Pro since its launch, apps load and run incredibly smoothly, so the Air can handle just about anything that current app developers or you are likely to throw at it. All the apps we've tried in our testing whiz along, as you would expect. The previous 2020 iPad Air could never have been described as slow though, and that was built upon the iPhone range of processors, so this year's approach to bring it more in line with the iPad Pro range could be seen as overkill, for what up until now has been considered very much a consumer rather than a pro device. Still, that performance boost will be welcomed by gamers, but even more likely to appeal to those who are editing video and photos or using drawing apps like Procreate. It means it can handle editing 4K video, which, thanks to LumaFusion, is something that's quick and easy to do now on iPad. There's little impact on battery life with this extra performance either, at least in any sort of concerning way. At least if you're not using 5G, which is one of the other new additions this year. Switch on the speedier connectivity option and you'll see the battery life deplete. Apple's promise of up to 10 hours on the non-cellular model though means you can still comfortably get a day's usage from it, like you've always been able to do with iPad. As for the display, that's lovely. Perfect for watching movies, games, or whatever creative endeavour you're working on. The screen comes with Apple's True Tone technology as well as delivering a wide colour gamut. It's P3 for those who are interested. Again, placing it side by side with the iPad Pro, it's difficult to see any significant difference. The one we did notice was that without the 120Hz refresh rate, the animations aren't quite as silky smooth and sharp. This isn't such a big deal if what you're using it for is predominantly watching movies. In fact, even if you're editing them on the go, it won't make a huge difference unless you're working with high frame rate projects. You might notice a bit of difference when it comes to brightness and dynamic range. It's not quite as bright as the iPad Pro, but it's still a very good display with decent colour and sharpness. To add to the media experience, there are stereo speakers too. Unlike the Pro, you don't get 4 of them, you get 2, one on each side of the device. It's enough to give you a bit of an immersive feel, but not quite as immersive as an iPad Pro. So what else? As for the cameras, the rear camera hasn't been changed from the 12 megapixel one that's in the 2020 model, but the front camera has changed. It's up from 7 megapixels to 12, and it's an ultra-wide lens too. You also get center stage support, so it will follow you around the scene as you move, but whether or not you like that is personal preference. Besides, you can switch it off if you want to. Then there's the software, and the latest iPad runs iPad OS 15.4, and that brings several useful features and changes, which include universal control, allowing you to connect it to a Mac and share content quickly and freely between the two devices, as well as controlling the iPad from your MacBook's mouse and keyboard. There's not a huge number of extra features specific to iPad, but the base iPad OS 15 was released in September last year and brought better multitasking, widgets, app library, and changes to Notes as well. For 2022, the iPad Air has gone from being a great tablet to being an even greater one, because the 2022 model is even faster in terms of performance and connectivity. Now we know what you're thinking, that's not exactly exciting for everybody, especially for those who like their new kit to look extra shiny and different. Although there is that new purple finish, but all said, the iPad Air with M1 processor delivers the goods where it needs to. It'll certainly appeal to those who have been thinking about upgrading for some time, just maybe not so much to the owners of the 2020 Air. So if you don't need the big scale of the 12-inch iPad Pro but want something more exciting than a 9th gen iPad, the iPad Air is certainly worth investigating. It's also a device that's genuinely comparable to the iPad Pro, so if the iPad Pro has always seemed too expensive for you, you can go with the iPad Air without losing much in terms of performance. Let me know what you think of the latest tablet. I'm on social media, I'm at Cam Bunton. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any more. And I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.